Hey everyone, it's Maggie, and I'm here with my dad today, and today's video is going to be a little bit different, or a lot, because he's telling his story, his testimony. And I thought it was really important to get it out there because he's told me his stories my whole life, and I know they've impacted me in ways no one else's life could have. So, yeah. So, he's going to tell. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, Megan has asked me to share my testimony, my life story, and I have struggled with it over the years whether I should or not, but we're going to give it a try and see what the Lord would have us to do. So anyway, I became a Christian when I was the age of 21. I went to Bible school 3 months after I got saved, and over the years, I listened to many testimonies while I was at Bible school from other students, and they always seemed to be wonderful testimonies. Testimonies that they said they were raised in a Christian home, they had Christian grandparents, had good Christian support, and that's why now they were at Bible school. And so I always listened to these people and thought they were wonderful testimonies, but it made me fearful about sharing mine because my testimony wasn't wonderful. And I didn't have a Christian family. I didn't have a good Christian upbringing. But the things that happened in my life were very beneficial to me personally as a Christian when I got saved or born again, because it made me stronger. And I was able to handle things in a much different way than, say, someone that is a Christian from almost birth. However, my youngest daughter wants me to share this, so I am going to share it. I was born into a very large family. My mom and dad had 9 children, of which I was the second oldest. My grandparents had 12 children. My uncles and my aunts all had 6 or more children. So we come from a big family background, but no Christian background. So we had to put up with a lot of things that a lot of kids don't put up with. Different from my brothers and my sisters, though, that would watch cartoons on a Saturday morning. I was kind of a weird kid. Instead of watching cartoons, I would watch Billy Graham or Oral Roberts. And when I finished watching the program, especially if I was watching Oral Roberts, at the age of 7, I'd run around the house laying my hands on everyone and healing everybody. Of course, my family thought that was quite comical. But that was my first experience with Christians. I didn't understand what it was all about, but even though I was just a youngster, I liked it. I had some experiences as a child that would draw me close to the Lord over the years, that might draw other people into drugs and theft, murder, and using it as an excuse. Where with me, it didn't. It drew me closer to the Lord. At a very young age, I always prayed, and I loved to go to church. I would sneak off to church by myself, and my mom and dad always thought that was cute. And I didn't understand everything that was being said at church, but it was like a personal relief for me, and something that kept me safe. And I say that because when I was about 7 years old, My father, he was a very frustrated and angry man. I never did know why, never did understand it. But he took his frustrations out on me. He would beat me, almost senseless. And he would do this almost on a regular basis. So I was always very much afraid of him. And he had a friend who at that time, when we were living in Eastern Canada, he had a friend that was the editor, the religious editor of one of the big newspapers in Toronto, and he started to molest me. And I told my mother about it because I wanted help, but Mom didn't know what to do, and she was afraid if I told my dad, or if she told my dad, he would be offended because I said something bad about his friend, and said that she said that Dad would take it out on me. So I decided not to tell him. And so these beatings went on right up till the time I was 21. Believe it or not, at 21 I was scared to death of my father. And with good reason. He was a big man. I was very small for my age. Like at 21 I was 115 pounds. My father was 250 pounds and he was 6 foot. So I had good reason to be afraid of him. So the beatings were so severe. He gave me black eyes, he gave me fat lips. I had bruises all over my body, and to protect himself, he would always say, what goes on in this house stays in this house. And he would always threaten if we tried to say anything about it, so we didn't. I gotta stick to my paper here or I get lost. I had to be careful what I said to him or when I said anything to him, because it would set him off and he would start beating me again. When I was about 10 years old, we moved from the Hamilton, Toronto area to Vancouver as a family. So we were there for about a year. When I was 11 years old, I was kidnapped, and I was sexually assaulted, severely beaten, and I was left for dead. I was found by a taxi driver. I can't say much more about that because I don't remember. I was in the hospital for between 2 and 3 weeks. Had to learn to walk all over again. And that was my second experience. I remember very vividly to this day when this man was doing the terrible things he was doing. I called out to God to help me. And as I was looking up in the air and I was screaming, I saw 2 angels. And they were coming for me. And when I looked up, the man looked up too. And he must have seen the angels because he stood up and ran away. And then of course I woke up in the hospital. And so that was quite a hard experience, trying to get over that and deal with that in my life. And it wasn't just the experience of the kidnapping and the sexual assault and the near-death beating. I think the biggest thing I had to deal with there was, for years and years, I wondered why the Lord spared me and not the lives of other children. Because the police told me afterwards, a long time afterwards, how fortunate I was, because most kids, when they're kidnapped, like 99% of the time, they find them dead. And so I survived, and that was a hard thing for me to get used to. I felt guilty because I survived, and I didn't know what to do about it. I asked myself many times why the Lord would spare me, and as I reflect on it now, I know why He spared me, and He had a mission for me, and gave me the ability, once I got saved, to share the gospel with so many young people and lead so many young people to the Lord.
Including me.
Including my daughters, my 2 daughters. So, anyways, trying to fast forward things a little bit. We were living in Vancouver in 1971, and my father and my oldest brother, and they both had very bad tempers, so they got into a very, very bad argument. I was caught in the middle of it, because my brother and I at that time had started a little moving business up, and we were doing pretty good. But my father wanted in on the money part of it, and my brother said, no, you don't get any money, this is our business. And my father and my brother got into quite a fight, and I was basically the innocent bystander, but I was in the middle of it, and they were trying to make me choose between them. And then, right out of the blue, my father ran into the house. We didn't know what he was up to. We thought maybe he wasn't coming back out because he had had enough. But lo and behold, he came out with a loaded shotgun, and he threatened to shoot my brother. And when he did that, we didn't even respond to him anymore because we were afraid if we said something, he would shoot him. So we both jumped into our cars, and we drove from Vancouver to Penticton. Basically, we drove all night. We didn't know really where we were going. We just jumped into our cars and left, and we ended up in Penticton. So while we were in Penticton, my brother and I, we both got jobs building mobile homes in Penticton. Lived in Okanagan Falls. My brother lived in a small log cabin with his wife and 2 children. I bought myself a tent, and I found the spot on the side of the mountain. I made friends with an orchardist who let me put my tent up there. And over the next 2 years, I lived in my tent, and I would just go to and from work, living in my tent, and trying to get a hold of life, trying to figure things out, trying to reason things out, why I was going through the things I did all my life. And then one night, I guess it would be after about 1.5 years, I was laying in my tent, wide awake, with my dog. He was my companion. He was the guy I came home to every day. And Jesus appeared to me. How did I know it was Jesus? I guess He just told me, because I'd never had any experience like that. He held His hand out to me like He wanted me, and I didn't understand it. I ran outside of the tent, and He was gone. I didn't know what to do about it, so I laid awake all night just pondering it. So the next day I got in my car. I was going to go to work, but because of my vision, I thought to myself, I just got to think this through. And so I just wandered around town that day, and I went into Skaha Lake Park. It's a very beautiful little park. And there was my mother and my aunt. My aunt was from Hamilton, Ontario. My mother and my father had moved to Kelowna, which I knew nothing about. I didn't know they were there. But they were in this park that day, my aunt and my mother. And my aunt is a German Jew. She was born again. So I told her about my vision. and she told me, she says, Bobby, the Lord wants you to go home. Well, the last place I wanted to go was home, because my dad was there, and he was a threat to me. He was the last thing I wanted to be confronted with. But I thought my aunt had a lot of wisdom, so I did what she did, what she said. I packed my bags, which wasn't much. I just had a duffel bag in my car and my dog, and we headed to Kelowna. Found out where my mom and dad were living, and I went there. I asked them if I could stay until I figured things out, and they said I could. And so while I was there, I was only there a week or so, a man showed up at the door, knocked at the door, and I answered it. And his name was Barry Keith, and he invited me out to church, which I found appealing, but I was a little bit afraid by this time. I was 21 and I didn't know where my life was going. But I told him I would go to the church, and this went on for about 6 weeks. I tell him I'd go to church and I'd walk right by the church. I didn't go in. This went on, I think it was about six Sundays. Finally, on the 6th Sunday, I assured Barry that after the 6th Sunday I went forward at the church, and it seemed like the pastor was speaking to me and nobody else. So it's like everyone disappeared. And at the end of the service he made an altar call, and I ran to the front of the church and I asked Christ. I went forward and I asked the Lord into my life, and my life changed instantaneously. And what I mean by that is, the very first thing I asked the pastor of the church was, how can I lead my father to the Lord, a man that I hated and despised? So the Lord gave me a love for this man, which I myself didn't understand. And the pastor said, Bobby, you just love him. Just love him. Everything you say and do, you just love him. And to make a long story short, about 2 months later, after doing things that drove my dad nuts, I washed his car for him, cut his lawn for him, pruned his trees for him, name it, I did it. And he always asked me, why are you doing that? And I would say, because I love you. And it literally drove him around the bend. But finally, I did get him to church. And like me, the very first day of church, he went forward and he asked Christ into his life. And my mother did that day also. And I just count my blessings, because my life changed so much, because it was after fall that I also met the girl that I was going to marry. I didn't marry her till almost 4 years later. But she loves the Lord and I love the Lord. We had 2 beautiful daughters, and I had the privilege of leading both of them to the Lord. They both love the Lord. And although we've had many trials over the years, the Lord has always blessed us spiritually, physically. He's always been there for us, and we just praise Him. Now, I don't tell you all these things to make you feel sorry for me or to think that I've had a terrible life, because I don't see it that way. I see it right from the beginning as the Lord having His hand on me and steering me to Himself. And I didn't come to know the Lord till I was 21, but I always loved the Lord. I always had a reverence for the Lord. I always prayed to the Lord. So He knew my heart, and He knew the exact right time for me to come to Him. And I guess my message for any of you that hear this will realize that the Lord has His hand on you also. And the Lord wants you. He loves you. He sent His Son to die for you. And He can rescue you from any situation you're in. And I just wanted to share that with you. That is the most important thing. That God loves you so much. No matter what experience you have, He is there for you. God bless.